understanding where your money's going, your cash flow, understanding where your profit is. When the revenue comes in, what happens, and understanding the trend is really, really important.
Why do growing businesses go broke? Welcome to the Profit Answer Man podcast. I'm Rocky Lalvani, and I help 7 and 8 figure business owners scale profits and cash flow while working less. Every week, we dig into proven methods like the Profit First system, other cash flow strategies, and real execution. No accounting jargon, no fluff. If you're going to be the backbone of America, creating jobs and serving your mission, you deserve to be well rewarded. We're Profit First certified professionals. If you want the masterclass, check out episodes 2 through 13, including Mike Michalowicz, where I break down the entire Profit First book, chapter by chapter. If you want, grab your free copy of the Profit Blueprint book at profitcomesfirst.com and start making profit a habit today. You built this business to serve your mission and your freedom. Let's make sure it pays you back. We also offer strategic tax planning and preparation to help you keep more of that profit. Now let's dive in. If you haven't gotten my free book, The Profit Blueprint, check it out. You can find it right at the website down at the bottom. We'll send it to you for free. If your business is growing, but your cash feels tight, you may not have a revenue problem. You might have a cash leak. In this episode, Natalia Zacharin and I break down what business owners miss when they wait too long to look at their numbers. And that's why you need someone who forces you to do it like I do. They hire because they feel busy, but not necessarily because they are busy, or they keep spending on marketing that isn't producing a return. One of the biggest issues I see with our clients. We also talk about how to spot trouble before payroll gets tight, why forecasting gives you time to make better decisions, and what it really takes to scale without creating more stress. Remember, scaling is supposed to scale your profit and your cash flow, not make you less money. Let's meet Natalie and see how she does it. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Natalia Zacharin. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm excited for the conversation. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. So I started basically a bookkeeping side gig back in 2019 just to make a little bit of extra money. And then I decided I might as well just keep building it and growing it. So January 2019, I got my first client. And now we're in 2026. It's our 7th year in business. We have 16 employees and we're on the Inc. 5000. And we do accounting, bookkeeping, and fractional CFO services.
Well, congratulations on your business success.
Thank you.
Has business always been easy for you since you've got that money background?
No. Even with the money background, it's not easy. It's a little bit, I would say that anyone that looks at their financials on a regular basis will make much better decisions. So I do make better decisions, but sometimes my decisions require a little bit of risk of like taking a little bit of a gamble because I want to build or scale. And sometimes that doesn't pan out the way I expected it to, or it doesn't pan out in the timeline that I thought it would, or the cost. So really understanding your break-even point, your profitability, all of your financials is very important because then you can keep taking those risks and keep scaling.
How often has it even been close on any of those targets?
So I've noticed I'll have a big revenue target and then everything else drives down from the revenue. I'll have a big revenue target and sometimes I won't make that target, but usually I'll make it a little bit later, maybe within the first quarter of the following year. So sometimes it doesn't happen when I want it to. Sometimes like last year, so 7 years in business is great because I'm getting close to that 10-year mark where that means that I'll have a full cycle of a lot of economic situations. So last year was one of those. And it was a very tough year. And I started out the year very strong. We had a very, very strong 2024. And so right out of the gate in 2025, one of my largest clients sold their business. So out of the gate, I lost $250,000 in revenue. And I wasn't too concerned because we've always built, we've always scaled and been growing, except for last year. So I took a bet that because we'd been doing this for 5 years, I decided to invest heavily in building out systems of sales, marketing, advertising. And unfortunately, those systems don't always give you a return on investment right away. And they could be a little bit costly if they're not. And so with the perfect storm, losing my biggest client, already investing in a lot of these systems and agencies, and then having an economy where clients decided not to, so our advertising wasn't working, and then clients were not really buying for about 8 months for the first time ever. And by June, I was sweating bullets. I was starting to look at my numbers again and deciding, do I need to terminate someone to save some money? What do I need to do? And we did have enough cash reserves that it all panned out. And by August, it all started flowing again. And we actually built an additional $1 million in business the last quarter of last year. But I took a gamble.
What was it that caused the slowdown last year?
Yes, really good question. And I see it a lot in clients. So I still have my own book of clients. I run the business. I have 3 other CFOs. 13 bookkeepers. And I still have my own book of clients as well. And I get to see patterns of what's going to happen, also patterns of what works and patterns in the economy. And what I started seeing is a significant slowdown in revenue growth or even decreased revenue for a lot of the clients. And they're in all different industries across the board. We don't really niche down. So we have a lot of different industries. And several of the industries were still doing really well, but the majority of them were not. Their revenue really started shutting down. And then the same thing started happening to us. So I started getting insight before it even happened to us that there was a big slowdown. What I think happened was with the new presidency, now whether you agree with the presidency or not, that doesn't matter. As a business owner, you have to do with what you have and deal with it and pivot. And it is what it is. But with the new presidency, there were a lot of changes and talks about tariffs. And business owners and people that spend, they don't mind if there's a change. They'll pivot and they'll make changes. They stop in their tracks and they freeze when they don't know what's going to happen. And so we had this push and pull for 6 months with not knowing what's going to actually come through with the tariffs. And so there was a significant slowdown in spending. And because there was a slowdown in spending, that has a trickle up effect for business owners also. And businesses don't want to make changes or they don't want to spend money on certain services.
And you're seeing that has cleared up, because it seems like, at least for the last few years, it's just waves. Up, down, waves. Up, down, up, down.
So my theory is because of AI and because of the internet and because of all of these things, that now our economic cycles, they used to happen every 5 to 10 years. I think now they're happening every 1.5 to 2 years because of, I think everything's just speeding up. So yes, it is up and down, up and down. I think that we had a pretty strong end last year to the year. Economically, we had a strong start in January, February, and now it feels to have flattened out somewhat.
I'm wondering if that's truly the entire cycle, because usually when you go through a down cycle, you wipe a lot out. Mm-hmm. And COVID definitely wiped a lot out, but I don't even look at the statistics, but I'm not seeing that many businesses get wiped out currently, unless it's a particular niche that got hit hard because of something that changed in their market. We're not seeing the complete wipeouts that really need to happen during a down business cycle.
Yes. Part of that might be also because the barrier to entry has significantly been lessened because of the internet. Now you can have a remote company and not have to pay rent, for instance. That's a huge savings. Or you can buy product from another country and not have to inventory it, and not have to warehouse it, and you just direct ship it. So I think things have really changed and a lot more people are starting businesses, but we will see the ones that are very successful and the ones that just kind of stay as a lifestyle, more self-employed, I think, rather than just building.
And I think that's always the case. A certain amount of businesses are always going to be lifestyle businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. Be clear on what you want, build what works for you, and enjoy it. And
Yes.
that's kind of, begin with the end in mind. You work with a lot of clients. What are some of the patterns you see with their behaviors outside
Mhm.
of the economic patterns that help you to understand what's going on?
So the first is taking an interest and taking the time to go through all of the financials. And I hate to belabor this, but it's literally the language of your business. So understanding where your money's going, your cash flow, understanding where your profit is, when the revenue comes in, what happens, and understanding the trend is really, really important. So taking that time to sit down with someone, because as a business owner, you're pulled in a million different directions, but taking the time to sit down with someone and reviewing it and then really figuring out the next steps, the biggest domino to hit all the other dominoes is very important. So taking the time to do that and with a clear mind. I'd also say making decisions quickly. The people that, the business owners that make a decision quickly will in the same time make the decision, realize it's wrong, pivot because they learn from it, and then make a better decision. Whereas the people that don't make fast decisions will still be thinking about it, and that person's way ahead of them already. So making fast decisions is really important. Now, with information and data is better, but even without data, like just breaking things and then fixing it quickly is not a terrible thing for a lot of business owners.
And that is that Elon Musk, that's his mode. Like we're gonna break things to see how far we can go, and then we'll fix them, but that tells me where the edges are.
Yes.
And I think a lot of business owners are afraid to find where their edges are
Mhm.
because you're going to break something. And
Yeah.
he has no fear with that. You mentioned, though, business owners taking the time to sit down and go through their financials. Do you find that a lot of them don't want to do that or struggle with that part of it?
I think a lot of them struggle with it. So money, taxes, everything is very triggering for many people. So they don't want to. Many business owners, that's not what they're good at. They're good at their trade or whatever they went into business for. So, if they're a bakery owner and that's what they're really good at, or they own an HVAC or whatever it is that they're really good at, that's what they want to do. And a lot of them don't want to think about the financials and they don't realize how important and how foundational that information is until they sit down with someone on a regular basis and start seeing patterns also and start seeing trends. Because in finance, it's not where you are now, it's where you're headed. You could be in a really good position today, but if there's a profit leak or expense or your expenses are starting to exceed your revenue, whatever it is, and it's a trend over time, you might not be able to see it until 6 months down the line where you're suddenly like, where is all my money?
And is that what you find? It's like the trends move slowly,
Mm-hmm.
but slow changes over time compound pretty big. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, it's way too late by the time they figure out what just happened.
Yes. By the time someone contacts us as a CFO, it's because they have a problem. So it's never too late. I don't want to say it's ever too late. We've seen terrible situations that we've really helped to improve dramatically, but it's always almost too late in their minds because they'll connect with us because they don't have money for payroll, which is a terrible feeling. That happens very, very often. Or they can't pay their tax bill and they don't understand what is going on in their taxes. Or they don't understand they made $300,000 in profit and they only have 30,000 in the bank and they don't know what happened to their money. So they usually come to us when it's almost too late. So it's never too soon to start working with someone. It's actually never really too late except for when you run out of money. And then it makes it harder. But we can see, especially if you project out a forecast is like a crystal ball. I love it. So if you project out where you are now, where you're trending, and you look month over month of what that looks like, you can see in 3, 6, 9 months down the road what's going to happen. So now you have options and time to make changes.
What I find is I think there is a tipping point, even if it's not too late.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if they've dug a big enough hole and
Mm-hmm.
they have debt, especially, it takes a very, very long time to climb out of the hole. I would say in a lot of businesses, it might take multiples of time to climb out of a bad hole just
Yes.
because it creates a massive drag on the business. And some of these businesses, they get into the equivalent of payday loans where they're paying 30, 40, 50% interest. You get into that situation and you're in big trouble because the cost of the loan just balloons out of hand and they're very predatory. And so you really have, I think if you're at the point and you're saying to yourself, I need to borrow money for daily operations or payroll, you really need to take a hard look at your business because that is a red flag going up fast that says there's a problem. And if you borrow to fix it, it's going to take you a long time to get out of it.
I completely agree. And we see that a lot. And we see these loans where I'm literally afraid that someone's going to come out and break their legs if they don't pay it. That's what it seems like. They are very predatory and very scary. We've seen that several times. The interest rates are exorbitant. And then so if you're, like you said, if your operations are not covered by your revenue, regular operations are not covered by revenue, that there's a bigger problem there. You can't just throw money at it to try to fix it. You have to fix the issue or you're going to get in trouble.
And so this is where I get into confrontations with business owners because
Mm-hmm.
they'll come to me with the same scenario you had last year. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I need to grow, so we're going to spend on marketing. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's fine, but is your marketing working? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or before they even spend on marketing, they start hiring the people. So they build up for what's going to come, right? They watch that movie and they think if they build it, they will come. That doesn't happen. And so they get their expenses ahead of their income.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say we should go the opposite way. The income comes, then we can have the expenses. It's
Mm-hmm.
better to stress your business with more work than it is to stress your business with no cash.
Yes.
It goes better.
Yes.
But I think business owners tend to do the opposite. They tend to build it with this positive attitude that it will come. And things always just tend to take longer than you think they will. This one's delayed, that went wrong, mistakes happen, and you'll get there. But if you're losing money every month, it's hard.
Yes. You can't lose money every month. I do want to say something about my position. First of all, I had 6 months of cash just sitting in my account because we had been extremely profitable, like 50% profitable for many years, plus my salary. So I decided to cut into that profit. We were still profitable. So that's why I always tell people they have to be way more profitable than they think they do. Because when you start hiring a little bit for capacity, or if you start really paying attention and building out your sales and marketing, that's going to dip your profit. And so our profit dipped to 25%, still profitable, still have cash, didn't dwindle the cash. So that's a much better way to do it. But there are a couple of things that I learned also because I'm a business owner and I'm constantly pushing the limits too and learning. I should have required a return on my investment with the marketing agencies a lot sooner and pivoted a lot faster. It took me 9 months to figure that piece out. And so I probably, if I had a little bit more experience, could have figured it out in 3 months if I pivoted a little faster.
So out of curiosity, how do you measure that? Because that is that is one of the biggest red flags I run up against, which
Mm-hmm.
is wasted money on sales and marketing.
Yes. You have to have metrics. You have to, for every agency or anyone you hire, or even for yourself, if you're doing it yourself, there have to be metrics. For sales, they have to know, you have to have leads first. So lead generation is first. There's no reason to hire a salesperson if you don't have someone for them to talk to, unless they're doing business development for you, which is a little bit of a different role than just sales. So the role has to be very, very clear. You have to communicate the metrics and the expectations and in a timeline for everything that you do. There has to be a return on investment. And if there isn't, you have to constantly have a conversation and not wait 30 days. Like this is a every 2-day conversation, several times a week conversation of this is not happening. It's not working. We need to either make changes or I need to terminate this arrangement and find someone else that can do it. So a marketing agency should be providing you not just views and leads. Is there a booked call? So are there actual sales happening? Is it actually building something, or is it funneling into an entire ecosystem? So ads are very specific. Is the ad performing? Well, you know, if you have someone that responds to the ad, they make a call, and then the sales call is booked, and then the salesperson takes over and they close that call. And all of those things should have metrics. And if they don't, then you need to either work with someone else or keep pivoting until you figure out what that formula is.
So here's what I see. First, the agency has a contract for X amount of time. And so it may or may not be breakable. So the first thing is make sure your contracts are breakable without penalty.
Yes.
2, marketing agencies always say it's just a little longer. You know, we have to see what gets traction. It takes a little bit of time. You have to spend a little bit more money to make it work. Those are all the things I hear constantly.
Yes.
And owners are like, I'm not a marketing agency. I don't know. And so they're unsure.
Yes. That's why this podcast is so important because I'll tell people now, I had the marketing agency tell me that for 6 months. You just need to record other content. You just need to do more, like as if it's my fault. It'll come, and not a single lead for 6 months. And I should have broken that contract 3 months before.
I always say marketing agencies are very good at selling themselves, not necessarily selling you. Part of the things you want to look at is a lot of times you will do business with a marketing agency and the person who sold you or the owner is the conversation. But then who's actually working on your account? You know, is it an intern? Is it a trained person? Is it someone in another country running your stuff and doing it using AI? Where do you fit into their ecosystem? Are you the tiniest client where they really don't care about you? Or are you a big client to them that they're going to make sure that they jump through the hoops? But the other thing is, I think the owners have to have clarity on why their customers buy from them. Because if you don't have clarity on what your customers buy from you and why, the marketing agency can't figure out how to market you if you don't know how to market you. And I think that's another reason that so many people struggle with this space.
Yes, I really agree. I don't recommend marketing or advertising or spending on that until you get to a certain level in business. And I don't recommend hiring salespeople until you get a certain level of business. I recommend that the owner figures that piece out. You're the owner. You need to figure out how to get clients. And there's going to be no one that has more skin in the game than you as the owner. And it's hard. I'm an accountant. You know, most accountants aren't good at sales. But I remember I had a script. I reached out on LinkedIn for free to people. I reached out to people in networking groups for free. It was just my time. And I started building up my clientele, literally just talking to people one after another and making that a priority for several years. And we normally don't recommend that someone spends money on advertising or even marketing or sales until they have a consistent lead generation service and that they're probably closer to $750,000 to $1 million in gross revenue. Otherwise, you have to do it yourself.
And that makes a lot of sense. There are stages in business growth, and each stage has its own requirements and needs. The
Mhm.
other thing I think that needs to get important, because I hear marketing people say this all the time. Well, if you give us $1, we'll give you, let's say, $3 in sales. So that's great, isn't it? You give us $1, we'll give you $3. And I'm like, wait, time out. If you give them $1 and they give you three, right? You now have $2 in revenue,
Mhm.
technically, not three. If it costs you $2 to deliver it, right? Because that's just what your cost is to deliver the product. Now you have no gross profit. Like there's nothing left to run the business, pay you, do all that stuff. You basically bought business that doesn't put a penny in your pocket and
Yes.
is actually causing you more stress and aggravation. And most marketing agencies I have found don't understand gross profit.
Mhm.
They don't look at what does it actually cost to deliver. They think if you spend $1 and you got three, that they've done a wonderful job of making you money. And
Yes.
I think that's where a lot of business owners get confused. Nor do they know the answers to that because they don't have a financial person like us.
Yes. Yes. We always look at how much are we spending on all marketing, advertising, marketing, everything. And it should not be more than 10% of your top line. It should be 10 to 12%, but only if you're getting a return on investment. And that also is included in getting like a 20 to 50% profit margin, depending on your industry. So your profit margin has to be including your marketing and sales and your gross profit and everything else.
Most companies are closer to a 10% profit margin if
Oh,
they're
yeah.
making money.
If they're making money.
20% is usually good. You're above 20%, there's a good chance there's going to be a lot of competition coming in because they see
Hmm.
the opportunity to make money too,
Hmm.
which tends to drive prices down. Now, there are certain industries that are high margin for a variety of reasons, but you have to be intentional to build something like that.
Hmm. We are not in a race to be at the bottom. That's a terrible race to be in. And if everybody tells, I've had people tell me, I can't be successful because I have so much competition. I'm an accountant. Anyone with a computer anywhere in the world can say they do what I do. And they do, but they are not the same. And we don't want to compete with a sole proprietor who charges $10 an hour. That's not who we are. And that's why we keep trying to build and build value, more and more value. And we have higher level people. And so we are going to be bringing a lot more value and not racing to the bottom. So if you are in an industry, and there are a lot of industries that are really difficult, I'm sure like anybody with a paintbrush can say they're a painter, and they do. Anybody with a lawnmower says they have it at, like, a landscape company. But the difference is quality and explaining that quality, understanding what your client needs, like understanding their problems and having those solutions.
And all of that is true. We try not to race to the bottom. We try to race to the top and
Mm-hmm.
figure out how can we deliver more value so that clients are willing to pay that higher price point.
Mm-hmm.
Pricing's one of those weird things that the reality is a small price increase drops massively to your bottom line, and yet most business owners are afraid to raise prices.
Mm-hmm.
But we show them how they can do it in a comfortable way and in different ways, and then once they get confidence, they continue to do it. So
Yes,
sometimes they
it's
need a little bit of help.
they do need a little bit of help. You had mentioned earlier about hiring and hiring before you even have the capacity. Most business owners think about hiring when they're busy, not because their data is showing that they can support it financially. And you have to hire when you can support the payroll, not when you're just busy. And usually, if you're the sign that you're super busy but you can't afford to hire is a problem with your pricing or the amount of clients you have.
Or the efficiency of the operation. I cannot tell you how often I will look at it and I go, there's something wrong here because you're spending too much money on labor. And over time, we figure out that they've got a lot of people in their organization that are fire starters. They
Hmm.
create problems, they don't solve them, they make more of a mess than they help. And once they clean all that out and they make the hard decisions, all of a sudden the payroll drops and the work gets done and everyone is happier.
Yes.
And so that's another reason that happens. But you have to be aware of that. Busy is not the right thing. I can't tell you how many business owners tell me everyone here is busy. And I'm looking at their labor costs and I'm looking at their profit and I'm like, yeah, they might be busy, but they ain't making money.
Mhm. Yes. I love this topic, actually, the payroll to revenue ratios and the trend and how important it is. So hiring people is a skill, and understanding if they're being productive and efficient and effective is also a skill, and terminating them if they're not in the right place or they're not aligned or they don't have the right skill set is also really important. And it's been a really interesting journey and learning how to do all of that myself for my own firm. I have a story from, I think it was 2024, where we were growing exponentially and I hired 12 people that year and fired 6 of them. And part of it is my getting better at hiring. We do have a process and a system. We use the book Who by Randall Street and Jeff Smart with their 3 interview process and the scorecards. We also do personality testing. We have more than one person interviewing because you cannot be an emotional decision. You can't hire someone just because you connect with them on the interview. It never works out well. But even with all of that and understanding their skill set, it's still a 50-50 shot if, first of all, if they're going to be productive workers. We're remote, so holding people accountable is really complicated. And for them to really understand the position and the urgency that we work in. And so when you have someone that is on your team that is not being as productive, the rest of the team knows that. And the really productive team members start to feel like they're not being appreciated, and they're also starting to be disrespected. And so whatever you tolerate, the bottom rung of what you tolerate is going to be the bottom of what you have in your business.
And that is very true. I always say that business ownership is a self-development journey. And your business will only go as far as you've gone. So if you're not improving yourself, your business is going to struggle. But I think business owners, just like you talked about before, they're in stages. And a lot of times when they come to listen to this podcast, they're in the stage where they are struggling financially. And so we get that. And so this is tactical. Once you get to that stage, then, our other podcast takes you to that next level. But you got to be able to breathe before you do that. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where we're at. What other types of patterns do you see in your business owners?
Definitely, I would say those that focused on the wrong things. A lot of the folks that focus on the wrong things have either gone out of business or they had to figure out how to focus on the right things. One thing that's great when you work with a coach or with a CFO or anybody who you're working with on a regular basis is it's good to have some kind of accountability, because you are being pulled in a lot of different directions. And usually the thing that you need to do is going to be something that's uncomfortable. And so you might avoid it. And what I see is some business owners avoiding what they need to do, which is usually sales and getting more business themselves. And then they start poking around and doing things that are very unimpactful because they want to stay busy and they want to avoid the hard things. So that's another personality trait that I see. The people that just don't avoid the hard conversations, they don't avoid doing the uncomfortable things. They jump in and they do them. They are going to be a lot more successful.
And I agree with you. I just had a conversation with one of my clients today about how he avoids the hard things. He when there's stuff he doesn't want to do, he delegates it and he forgets about it. I'm like, dude, this isn't working. You can delegate it, but you also have to make sure that they're clear on what you've delegated and that you hold them accountable. And if they're not doing what you expected them to do, then as you said, you got to cut them off. And you have to make those hard choices. And that's kind of the problem.
Yeah. I'll say another thing, actually, that's a pattern that I see. Someone who's very strong with their mission, vision, and their core values and aligned with them has a better business also.
I agree with you. That's a big thing that we talk about with business owners, but they always kind of struggle with that one. And what I mean by that is it's something they'll do later,
Hmm.
or it's something they don't adhere to. Like our values are X. Does anyone know that? And are you living them? Because if you're not, and if you're not hiring to them, then I think all of these things are going to be a struggle.
Yes. The values have to, you, the owner, has to like really, really believe in them and live them. And they actually, for me, it's been really helpful to make decisions on who we hire, who we keep, which clients we work with, what we do next to see if I'm in alignment with those core values. And that's made it easier for me to not be a pushover when things get hard because I look and see, is this in line? So my biggest core value is integrity. We're an accounting firm. You have to have integrity to work here. But if I catch someone gossiping, that's a lack of integrity. There's going to be a conversation, a hard conversation. And if it keeps happening, they can't stay.
And that is a big thing. You're working in alignment and you're making it clear and you got to do it. And that's just the reality of it. And I think when we make those harder decisions, life gets easier.
Mm-hmm.
And when we don't make those harder decisions, life gets harder. And so you have a choice to make and you have to decide what you want to do. And do you
Yeah.
want an easy business or a hard business? So they're kind of inversely related, you know? What are you going to do?
That's so true.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If people would like to learn more about your company, how do they find you?
So we have a special page for your guests. It's going to be under www.zacharinconsult.com/PAM for Profit Answer Man. And there you'll find a couple of free downloads, 7 ways to find money in your business now, and the ultimate checklist for financial success. There's a calendar link there if you want to connect with us. And then there's actually other resources that are free on the website as well.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It was great. I appreciate it.
This is a constant for me. Business owners always think they need more revenue. What they need is more clarity. I believe in ELF, easy, lucrative, and fun. How do you turn your business into that? What we do and what Natalie does is spot the leaks, figure out, is payroll too high? What's going on with taxes? Is debt the problem? And then you get yourself options. Bottom line, once you have clarity on your numbers and you know where your profits and your cash flow come from, then it's easy to work on it. If you know another business owner who needs to hear this, do me a favor, share it with them. You'll help them, and maybe it'll start a great conversation with you. Natalie and I are here. Either one of us can help you achieve what you need to do. We each have our specializations. Tired of scaling and growing beyond your cash? Ready to end the cash flow roller coaster and build real wealth inside and outside your business? We should talk. I serve 7 and 8 figure mission driven business owners increase their profit and cash flow while working less. We help you build the businesses that run without you so you work less and make more. Book your discovery call today. There's a link in the show notes. You'll work directly with me as your Chief Profitability Officer. If you're a 6-figure business owner, check out the Profit Blueprint program at profitcomesfirst.com. It's your guided path to mastering your numbers with my assistance at an affordable investment for your revenue. Check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. It covers leading yourself and building the ultimate life and business. There's also a link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to the podcast, where revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have a profitable week.